Alrighty, everybody. It is currently Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live with the Religion Power Rankings, aka the 10 follower special. What the fuck? Just got 2 new followers over the past 2 days. Shout out to those goons, those hoodlums, those internet goblins dredging the depths for whatever, barely racist, barely comprehensible content they can find. What's up? Shout out. Welcome. You know what I mean? This is a good introduction, you know what I mean? I'd say play this one for your family. And I know what everyone's people might be thinking, anyone that's ever listened to this before won't be thinking this, but this isn't going to be like an in-depth, exploration of the theology of like Buddhism and fucking Islam and Christianity or whatever. This is just a very surface level ranking to give you any indication as to how not serious this is. The previous episode I did, which is I probably took the previous episode more seriously than I'm taking this one. The previous episode, the previous rankings was the top. We had a top 10 hub category rankings, and then within that there was like the top 5, because the top 10 was just, most of them were there just based off like the legacy of them, and then we had like a top 5 of like specific rankings, which should have put out like a poll on that one. Maybe I didn't know I was going to be, I didn't know the podcast was going to be blowing up, reaching all different corners of the world. I'm pretty sure one of the followers was born in Antarctica. I think that's what Spotify told me. I should have put up a poll, you know what I mean? But the comments are always open. So if you feel strongly one way or the other about my list, you can put a comment there. I'm not going to listen to it, right? You're not going to change my habits. I'm entrenched, right? I'm more entrenched in the porn I watch than the religion I follow. And I've been switching around a little bit. For a while there, I was thinking like Orthodox Christian is pretty sick. And then I was like, no, that's gay, right? Like that's just like Islam without any of like the hype shit to it, right? Like, right? Like women in veils and shit, and like no drinking or whatever. And none of like the hype that Islam has. Like Islam has that, you know what I mean? They got that power. They got that Allahu Akbar behind them. Orthodox Christianity, all their chants and shit are just like, oh, bo, which, look, it's sick, but it's not that sick. And then I kind of switched over to like the Buddhist philosophy, not really the Buddhist religion. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And now, to be honest with you guys, I know this is an unpopular opinion, especially in this time and place, in the present world that we live in. I'm kind of leaning towards Hinduism in fucking just India in general. I feel like that's a switch that's going to happen pretty quickly, especially in America, right? With all like the LA immigration riots or whatever, which we talked about a little bit, I think, last week, but it wasn't Los Angeles, it was Minneapolis, which is just I can understand Los Angeles kind of being like a liberal place. Like it's very liberalism and progressivism is like, it's hopeful, right? It's you you kind of not only want an ideal world, but you kind of like live in an ideal world. And my example of that is like communism. People that like really vehemently believe in like communism, especially as a economic system within an industrial space like the one, we live in America, those people are very idealistic. As much as they'll act like they're not, they really are, because in order to think that communism can really work like that, which I'm not saying it can't, there's instances where it can work, you really have to be an idealist. You really have to think that, because I mean, you get like 3 or 4 corrupt motherfuckers in there, the whole thing the whole thing is going down, right? Like you look at the USSR, for example, that was like, it was like fucking, I don't know, however many, like 300 million. I'm talking about the whole USSR, not just Russia. It's probably 300 million if I had to guess, somewhere around there. Just incredibly like hardworking, dedicated people that just blindly work their asses off as hard, like incredibly hard workers, people who are very, committed to the fucking, philosophy of communism. And then just like 3 corrupt people at the top, maybe not 3, maybe 300, let's say, completely destroying like the whole thing. Like literally the hardest working people are maybe second. The Mexicans are probably working a little harder, although now the Mexicans are kind of turning into the Indians a little bit, where they're just talking so much shit about America, at least the ones that are here, at least, not the good ones. Not the good ones. The good ones aren't talking too much shit, but like the ones that have been here for like 3 or 4 generations, or even the ones that were just like born here, or came over when they were really young. Like those ones, they're kind of becoming the Indians to me. Like a lot of people, like I saw this clip of Cat Williams. Some dude was like, he was performing in I think Phoenix, and this dude was like, "This is Mexico. This belongs to Mexico. Let's fucking go!" And he just started going off, dude. He started singing the Star Spangled Banner, and then. The most insane part of the clip, right? I feel like everything about Cat Williams is comical, like literally everything. The way he looks, he's like a 5'5", like skinny ass little dude, but he talks like he's 6'8" and jacked, which is hilarious. And as he should, dude, he's fucking hilarious. But he's like yelling at this dude who was like saying that Phoenix belongs to America. And he's like, "No, we fucked y'all up. Y'all bad at fighting." Whatever the fuck, Cat Williams. That's not a good Cat Williams impression. That's maybe a pretty racist one, some might say. But anyway, he's like screaming at this dude. And I guess it's like a walkway stage, right? Because it seems like there's people on either side of it. And he goes to the back of the stage, and the person recording it doesn't really catch it. And you just see Cat Williams walk into frame with like a fucking like the bald eagle that's on the quarter where it has like the arrows in one talon, and then the olive branch or whatever the fuck is in the other talon. And he walks up and he just places it in front of this dude and starts screaming the Star Spangled Banner at him. And so I feel like just that shit is they're kind of turning into Indians a little bit. I feel like the rhetoric, the discourse on Mexico may start to, because for a while there, you know, people were pretty racist towards the Mexicans, and maybe up until like the 1950s, and then it kind of calmed down because all the Americans, all like the pussy ass boomers were like, "Oh, I don't want to do manual labor. I don't want to build a house. I want to go to college. I want to go to college and cheat on my wife. I want to give my wife Lexapro and cheat on her all the time." And so the Mexicans had to come in and fucking, put belt to ass a little bit with the boomers, and they started doing all the hard work, showing what was up. And so I feel like they had a pretty good run for maybe like the 60s and the 70s, really up until now, right? I feel like now is when things are going to start going, not their direction again. It might turn into like maybe not some full-blown Indian shit, but people might start looking at them like how they look at Italian, or at least at least how I look at Italians, right? Like just fucking greasy haired, dark skin. But you can't call them meatballs. That's the thing about Mexicans is and all Mexican food is like, it's so good, and not a lot of it's like super greasy. Like even the birria, like the dipping tacos that they make, those aren't like super greasy. It's just like almost like a French dip. And so it's just a tough one, right? Like what food do you use? I think taco bender or something something like that is like one of the slurs, but you gotta have a food-based slur for a group of people, right? Like the Asians, obviously it's rice. For the fucking Africans, it's no food because they don't have any. And then obviously the Italians, it's like meatball. And then the British, you have like maybe not a food-based slur. Maybe the Italians are really the only ones that get that, but like an ethnic food that they have that like you can kind of be like, "Oh, you fucking meatball, you fucking," for the British, it's like you mushy pea eating fucker, you fish head eating bitch, right? Like you can do that to a British person, but you go up to a Mexican and you're like, "You taco eating motherfucker." It's like in the back of my car right now, I don't really eat fast food too much. I don't really go out to restaurants and shit like that. I'm not a big fan of it. I'd rather just drink chocolate milk. That I can almost guarantee you there's a Taco Bell bag or like some remnant of Taco Bell, some artifact, some fossilized sauce packet in the back of my truck right now. And it's just so it's like I can't go up to a Mexican being like, "You fucking taco." It doesn't work like that, right? Like I could go up to an Italian and you cannoli eating bitch, right? You eating cheese for dessert, you dumb motherfucker. Like I could do that, right? I could go up to an Asian and say some shit about rice or whatever. But I feel like all Mexican food, especially with how many Mexicans are in America, it's a tough one to be able to do that, right? And there are a ton of Italians and like British people in America, but the Italians, they're kind of like isolated, right? Like up in the Northeast, and even the ones like I live in the Midwest, the Italians in the Midwest aren't like the fucking Italians in the Northeast. They're like normal people. Right? They're good. They go to like they don't go to Catholic church too much. Some of them are like Methodist or maybe like Presbyterian, whichever one is close. I think maybe Presbyterian is the one that's pretty close to Catholic, but they're like that shit. You know what I mean? They're not walking around with the gold chains and the wife beaters. They know what fucking time it is, right? And it's hard to be like a meatball Andrew Cuomo New York City Italian and fucking in Kansas, dude. It's like you're surrounded by cornfields, but yeah, I gotta put I put out a hit on that skunk. You see that skunk on the side of the road? I had to put out a hit on it, right? Like you can't do that out here, right? It's it just it doesn't work. There's not enough murder going on. There's not enough like people up here really aren't too into gambling. Maybe some of them, maybe out in the college towns and shit like that. But you just can't be an Italian out here. You can be a Mexican and you can be black to an extent, right? You have to be a black person that can like maybe skateboard or something. Like if you're living in Kansas, right? Other parts of the Midwest like Missouri or fucking, Chicago, Illinois, like that type of region, you can be like a regular old black dude there, but you got to have like some hints of white to you if you live in Kansas, you know what I mean? If you're black, you got to have something going on. Maybe you drive a pickup truck, but you got to kind of choose one thing from there to like imbue into your blackness. But the Italians, they just can't. There's no remnant of that they can really hold on to because so much of it is like based off like living in the fucking New York or whatever. And so yeah, it's a tough one, right? It's like what ethnic food do you associate with the Met? Because it's all so good, right? Like I brought up cannolis for Italians. I like cream cheese, but I don't think they use cream. They use like ricotta or something in cannolis, and so it's like yeah, I fucking hate that. I can shit on them for that, but it's like Mexican food. I'm trying to think of like a Mexican food that like the typical white or the black or what, because the blacks are going crazy on it too. The blacks, and I feel like maybe Cat Williams is also part of this thing. They're starting to realize like this is how I can like curry favor, right? It's like when they talk about like the right wing grift. We see it a lot with the whites, but no one really calls it out with the blacks. There is some authentic ones in there, like the Hodge twins that like interviewed David Duke. Like those guys are legitimate fucking MAGA freaks from Tennessee or wherever the fuck they're from. But like there is some grifters coming over to the right, that are black. And I think look, I'm not accusing Cat Williams of anything. Cat Williams, if you're listening to this, and I know that you are, please don't come after me, dude. If anyone's ever seen that fucking interview with Cat Williams when he was on the radio with the chick, and the chick was like saying something about his hair, and Cat Williams goes, "Come over here and run one of your gnarled fingers through it." Dude, Cat Williams could destroy me, especially now. Like how fucking bright red I am from getting sunburned, dude. Like I tried to go out. I was playing fetch with my dog, and I had like a shirt on. I had like a pretty thick shirt on, right? This wasn't like some summer ass like bullshit Jimmy Buffett little thin thing that the sun could get through. This was like a legit fucking shirt. And I went out there and it was still like burning through the fabric. Like that's how sensitive my skin is right now. Cat Williams could destroy me really anytime. There's a lot to destroy about me. He couldn't come after me for my height, which I appreciate. Maybe he still would, dude. Like Cat Williams is, and the thing about it too is just like the aura around him is like he insults you, you're just gonna be stuttering all day, and that's how I am when really anyone insults me. I immediately start stuttering. Like I'm a bad stutterer when it comes to that. I stutter under pressure pretty heavy. Or I get like a crying voice. I get like a weird crying voice. And maybe I've like done it, especially when I'm talking for a long time or I have to just talk nonstop. I get like a weird crying voice to me, even though I'm not gonna cry. But yeah, it's just a tough one. It's a tough. What do you go after the Mexicans for, right? You can't do tacos. Everyone fucking loves taco, right? Every different type of taco too. Sorry for the mouth ASMR noises there. Or unless you got off to it, then congratulations, I guess. I had to move the Zen around a little bit. It's not a Zen though, it's an on. But everyone loves tacos, burritos. Anytime I go to a Mexican restaurant, I'm a big burrito guy, right? When that schizophrenic lady freaked out, or I guess she wasn't schizophrenic, she was on meth and started like throwing shit around at the Mexican restaurant I was at. That really wasn't even the thing that was like foremost in my mind. I was like, when is my burrito getting out? Like that's how much I love burritos. Maybe quesadillas, but I feel like the way a Mexican makes a quesadilla versus the way like a white makes a quesadilla is like they're two very different things. Like the whites will just put like some bullshit, like they'll put fucking the Parmesan cheese from the can onto a tortilla and be like, it's a quesadilla. But the it's just so tough, dude. It's like what food? Not guacamole. You really can't come after them in the food department. I don't know. It might have to be another thing about their like the trumpets or whatever. I don't know. And it really breaks my heart to do this. I have to have people understand that. It really breaks my heart to have to be racist towards Mexicans now. But you guys, It's your fault. I'm an abusive boyfriend. I'm fully an abusive boyfriend. It's your fault. All right. I love you. No, babe, you don't know. I hit you because I love you. that's what I'm. That's how I'm doing the Mexicans right now. But it's true. It's how I feel. You know, I feel like I have to be. I have to be racist towards them. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I love basically everything about them. They're all short, like me. They're Catholic. They work hard. You know what I mean? And they're not like so, and this is the thing about it, that I feel like this is maybe the ultimate reason, especially in recent years, why I've come to like love the Mexicans, is because they're not like some of the other groups in America, right? Like the fucking when the Arabs or the Somalians come over here, or, you know, fucking whoever, the Italians even, for example, when they come over here, they're like trying to start their own towns and shit, and they're being like, "Oh, you don't fucking know how much, you know, where I come from rules," and it's like, well, then why'd you leave? You know what I mean? Then why'd you leave there? Maybe not the maybe the Somalians don't do that. No, most of the Arabs don't, but the Arabs, they're starting to get a little high on their horse, right? Like they got Dubai. Dubai really got going, and like all the Arab countries are like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" We're they all think they're from Dubai. No, you're from a shitty, dry patch of desert in the middle of nowhere that no one gives a fuck about, dude. Like, you're not from Dubai. I feel like that's the thing that the Arabs are getting on, and that's the thing that the Mexicans are getting on now too, right? Like before, the Arabs were like before like Dubai and Qatar and, you know, I guess not, I just said the name of a city and then one of a country. But you guys know what the fuck I mean. Like the Arab Gulf countries, before they got their oil wealth going, they were like coming over here, getting in the gas stations a little bit, getting in the restaurant business a little bit, still keeping the culture. I understand. You know, it's sick. The food is sick. It's America. You still kind of can keep your culture. But now they're getting a little bit, you know, high and mighty where they're talking about, you know, how great the country, and they're like, we need to turn America into fucking Qatar or whatever. No, we don't, dude. It's not going to be Qatar. For one reason, really in particular, America can never be like the Arab Gulf or Persian Gulf, I guess, but the Arabian Peninsula countries. And it's just, you can't get them all on board like that. You know what I mean? You could in the 50s, right? And that's when they made like Disneyland, Disney World, shit like that. And that's all Dubai is. I don't know. People are acting like it's some insane marvel that this was. It's like, no, it's just big Disney World. It's just, if you gave Walt Disney the type of oil wealth that the fucking, you know, sheiks or whatever the fuck over there have, he would have made Dubai. He would have made Dubai in some fucking swamp in Florida in the 1950s if he had the money to do it. And that's all that Dubai is. Dubai's just Disney World. It's all completely manufactured. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like Disney World in the sense that they like dye the water and shit, right? I wouldn't be surprised if fucking Dubai has like a fucking Simpsons style dome over the top. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but the Simpsons movie, they get trapped under a dome. I wouldn't be surprised if that was over Dubai right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they just had like a giant dome with like a poorly painted sky on it, right? It's just Disney World. And I think people need to, if you understand that about Dubai, then everything else about it makes sense. Like everyone's like, "Oh, the crime rate's so low in Dubai." It's like, yeah, because it's surrounded by a fucking by a Jurassic Park style fence. I don't know if that's true, but like in spirit, it's surrounded by a Jurassic Park style fence. It's just Disney World, dude. It's just where fucking, you know, people go and people with a lot of money go, right? Like Disney World is even kind of turning into Dubai a little bit. Like Dubai used to just be like some bullshit ass vacation city, and now people are really starting to live there. And that's kind of what Disney World is turned. Like Disney World is like building houses on like the Disney World property. It's just, it's just Disney World. And that's like the ultimate thing I think most corporations want to achieve. And they did achieve it for a while, right? Where they create these cities basically, or these towns or these fucking complexes where the people that live there are just entirely dependent on them. And that's what they're doing with the oil wealth in the UAE and fucking Qatar and Oman. I don't know if Oman has oil wealth like that, but I think they're trying to do it over there too. And so yeah, it's just Disney World over there. It's just Disney World where you can get, you know, shit on by a hooker. And you could probably do that at Disney World too, by the way. Like most of the adults at Disney World, which is like who I'm drawing the comparison to. Obviously kids can go to Disney World, I don't give a fuck. But like the adults that go to Disney World, they all have like some weird childistic fetish, right? Like they all have some fucking weird fetish, like diaper play. You could probably go to Disney World and get your shit or get your chest shat on right now too, just like Dubai. So It's just big ass Disney World, with more skyscrapers and probably little bit more rape, right? A little bit more, probably not as much pedophilia. Really, probably not even close in terms of pedophilia. Rape is probably, it's probably significantly higher in Dubai. Maybe the occasional murder here and there, but it's really just Disney World, right? Like that thing is that thing is a strong breeze away from collapsing entirely. Like the Burj Khalifa. The Burj Khalifa is the tallest building. Yeah, yeah, we did that too. We built the tallest, but America built 1,000 foot tall fucking building in like 19. It's you can't even double it. You can't even. I don't know. I just don't like Dubai. It's just Disney World to me. That's all it is. Right? Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like everything you hear about in Dubai, they're like, oh, this building in Dubai, it's an apartment building, but sorry, I was talking about Dubai there. And it's just Dubai, it's exactly like Disney World, right? it's just people are like, "Oh, I want to travel." And then they go to Dubai and it's like, "Oh, you're going to experience you want to travel the world so that you can get a deeper cultural understanding of it." And you're gonna go to Dubai. The culture of Dubai is fucking like UFC fights and legalized slavery. That's all it is. And to be fair, that is kind of the culture of the world. That's kind of the way the world is going right now. It's just it's just sit in your fucking air conditioned house because the world around you is burning. Your house that was built by slaves. And watch the UFC fights, right? Watch two people go out there and fight nearly to the death, right? Watch two people turn themselves retarded for $30,000 each. And that's what you're gonna do, and you're gonna fucking enjoy it. And so look, if you want to go to Dubai, I get it, right? But going to Dubai, it's going to Disney World. That's all you're doing. As long as you can understand that, then hey, fuck it, man. If you want, if you want to go there and have a 19-year-old girl who has like a poor relationship with her rich father shit on your chest, then fine. I don't. If you want to see true dichotomy, maybe go to Dubai. If you want to see women who are not allowed to drive and who are forced to cover their entire bodies in thick layers of cloth while it's 200 degrees outside, and then turn around and see a fucking 19-year-old girl who's from like Destin, Florida, who's barely clothed and whose entire body, right, face, body, fucking the feet have had plastic surgery done on them. If you want to see that, then go to Dubai. But if you want to really experience a culture, which that is kind of a bullshit thing that people talk about in travel. They're like, oh, I went to Brazil and I really experienced the culture. You stayed in a hotel, dude. First of all, you stayed in a hotel. The culture of Brazil isn't having a bed. It's sleeping on a shitty fucking reed mat on the floor of your favela. Right? Like that's that's the culture of Brazil. The culture of Brazil isn't, sitting in an air-conditioned hotel in a nice comfy bed with white sheets on it. Right? You're sleeping on like a third-hand mattress that some fucking white Christian from the Salvation Army gave you with fucking Mickey Mouse sheets and you're 35 years old and you work at a tire shop or whatever. Like that's the culture of Brazil. You're not going to understand that by staying in a hotel room. So maybe the people who go to Dubai, maybe they don't, have that false belief in their head that they're going there to like have some insane deep cultural experience. Maybe they just understand that there's no culture left. Everything everything has been destroyed by PepsiCo and fucking Walt Disney, and they're just going there to be like, yeah, man, I just really want to experience what it's like to have shit from a BBL, from a completely fake ass, splatter all over my chest and face. Maybe that's all they want to do. And so if that's what you want to do and you can accept that fact, then okay, go to Dubai. I have no problem. Even if you don't, even if I'm not the person to listen to when it comes to these sorts of things, but just something about Dubai irks me. And how do we get on Dubai? We were talking about the Mexicans and how they're, going hog wild, being like, no, Mexico rules, and that's why I left it. And that's like a common thing with like these immigrants now. Like you look at like the UK or France or whatever, and their people are from like Albania and Syria and where the fuck else are they from? I know they're just they're just generally racist over there. Right? Like the UK really is just something about them. They just love like division. Even like within the UK, it'll be like, I'm from Sheffield and that guy's from Newcastle. Those morons, those subhuman trash from Newcastle. right? Like that's something that exists in the UK. And maybe that goes back to their colonialism, right? Because the way the UK did colonialism is like it's kind of a divide and conquer method where they and this is the way other groups did it as well. And they like but they go to some land, right? Like let's say they went to fucking Mozambique, even though the British were never in Mozambique. But they'd go there and they'd like turn like the two major tribes against each other and they'd have those two fight. And maybe that spirit of like division and just like ethnic quarrel, right, is so deeply imbued within the souls of people from the UK that they just can't stop. They wouldn't be satisfied if there wasn't a single non-white person there or a single non-British person because they don't even like the whites that are from other countries. A lot of people, look at the UK and like their whole immigration crisis, which is what it is, and they're like, "Oh, it's just racism." And it's like, "No, they don't like the people from like they don't like people from from fucking like Austria or whatever." Or like Czechoslovakia. They're like, "You're Maltese. What the fuck is wrong with you?" They don't they don't like anyone that's not British, and they don't really even like people that are British. They don't really like anything in general. And so maybe that's like a bad example of, the kind of tensions that, mass people call it immigration. It's really importation. It's really, the company or the government on behalf of these companies importing cheap labor. That's all it is. A lot of people are like, they're trying to ethnically replace us. It's an ethnic replacement. And it's not. If the US could import people from fucking, like I said, Austria or Italy or Greece or, Montenegro or whatever to do the jobs that they're making these poor Indians and these poor Mexicans do, they would do it, right? But they just can't because those countries are so rich. It's not like an ethnic they're not right? The people who rule over the country, the corporate overlords, the oligarchs, the fucking, permanent government in the CIA and the FBI and the fucking military industrial complex doesn't care about the color of the skin of the people they're fucking over, right? They just don't. They don't care about it. What they care about is getting as much money as possible for some reason. I don't know. I don't get that at all. But they care about that and they care about making as much money as possible. That's all it is. If they could instead of getting some guy from India, if they could get some fucking dumb rube from Russia to come over here and program their Hellfire missiles that bomb Palestinian children, they would. They would 100% without a doubt do it. But they can't, right? Because there's no there's no New Delhi in Russia. There's no fucking, urban expanse in Russia that's filled with plastic and shit constantly. That doesn't exist there. And so they're like, well, we can get these people from India. We can get a billion people. You could get a billion people from India to leave that country. You could, you just could, right? It's like you don't see people from China or wherever. You don't see, people from those other regions, coming over here and doing that. And that's because people in China are satisfied with their lives. People in Russia are satisfied with their lives. People in Montenegro are satisfied with their lives. But some fucking dude in India who's like a genius who's willing to work for $2 an hour, he's not. He's not satisfied living in a poorly constructed, concrete box surrounded by empty plastic bottles and plastic grocery bags and human shit. He's not satisfied with that. And so obviously, these corporations know that, and so they're going to bring people over to do that. Same with the people in Mexico. The people in Mexico aren't satisfied living under the terror government of a cartel, and so obviously you can get those fuckers to come over here and pick watermelons for 2 cents a day. Right? It's even cheaper than the Indians. And so if they could do the same thing with white people, they would. It's not some, grand, ethnic or racial replacement. It's especially not in America. Right? Like, and you can look at historical examples of this. Kind of the same thing happened with the Chinese and the Irish in the 1800s when they were building the railroads. They imported people from, China and Ireland because they could be used as cheap, expendable labor in a very dangerous, precarious situation and get paid no money at all, basically. Right? It's a very historic thing that they do, and they're not going to stop now, right? Like, they're like, oh, the UN exists and slavery is illegal now. Fuck, man, sorry, my bad. No, they're just gonna do it kind of private. They're not really even gonna do it that privately, right? It's not that private. Like you could see a video of like a Foxconn factory in China where people are like having seizures on the factory floor. Like you can go on YouTube and see that. It didn't stop. It didn't stop with the creation of the League of Nations after World War I or whatever. It's just gonna keep going on. And you know what else is going to keep going on? No matter what, it's always going to persist. I don't care what anyone says. We could uncover all the secrets of the universe. We could figure out how to travel, 10,000 light years a second or whatever the fuck. But people are still going to be religious. Even these people that are claiming they're not religious really are religious, right? Like the atheists or whatever. The atheists, they have their miracle. Like the one miracle you have to give them is the Big Bang. And the scientific explanation as to like what happened after the Big Bang is like pretty steady, but like the actual Big Bang itself, there's nothing really there. And so that's their religion, right? Like they just believe in it vehemently. Like these people, there's like almost like a religion around COVID-19 now. Especially like I went to a liberal arts university in Minnesota for the past year, and so I could tell you this fucking religion around the coronavirus still exists, and these people are devout. They're devout. They have their own dress. They have their own rituals, traditions. Basically their own language as well. Like these motherfuckers will come in and talk about it. Yeah, like one of my professors was like, "Yeah, I'm on my 15th booster," or whatever. Like that's not even a word that the vast majority of people in this country can count. 15. Most people in this country can't count to 15 in the first place, right? But you tell them you got 15 vaccines for a cold. Right? Like that's so far beyond the belief. It's basically its own religion, right? Despite all the evidence to the contrary about, masks or whatever, they still continue to wear the masks. They still continue to do it. They still, suck Fauci's dick or whatever, which I don't know, maybe the boy's got a piece on him. He is Italian, so he might have he might have a nice olive-colored cock, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I do imagine it is rather shrimp-like, if I had to guess, just judging from his appearance. Especially regarding the size of his nose, I'd guess it's circumcised. Yeah, so COVID is a religion, science is a religion. Everything has like a certain element of religiosity to it, right? And that's one of the things that maybe would make you believe in God if you are an atheist. Seeing like this devout fucking, faith, this conviction these people have around these things that are, pretty much unprovable. If you saw that and you were an atheist and you really thought about it, you might believe in maybe not the Christian God, but some sort of higher force. And so we're talking about religion today, and I might look for a more comprehensive list of the top religion. Dude, Google keeps fucking with it. Every time I look something up, it's asking, "Do you want an AI overview of it?" No, if I wanted an AI overview of it, I'd go to ChatGPT. I'd use the actual good AI. I'd use the fucking, the AI made by the autistic nerds in Silicon. I wouldn't use your AI made by some fucking poor rube in India. Right? I'd be looking for something good. And so we're going to be talking about the religion power ranking, and it's what I'm looking up like the top most popular religions in the world. Infographics. Reddit's always got some popular or some good ass shit going on right here. Okay, and so I have, what is that? The 7 most popular in the world. That's a pretty good list right there. You don't want too many, especially when you get into the weeds with it and you're like, oh, is this Hinduism or is it Buddhism or is it just like a little offshoot of some bullshit? 7's a pretty good number for that. You know what I mean? And so we got the 7 right here, 7 most followed in the world, the top most popular. And the numbers do seem to be a little bit off. I think this might be a little bit older. Yeah, it's from 2020, so about 5 years ago. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but and this might be just like one of those pure TikTok rumors that popped off, but apparently they got the number of people in the world completely wrong. Apparently they were off by like a third. Apparently there's 12 billion, not 8 billion, which does make sense, right? It's like people aren't the Indian census tracker, that in and of itself would be a governmental agency larger than the United States government itself. Right? Like that's how big a census bureau in India would have to be, just constantly running around. You run down the street in India, you go through like a fucking a slum in New Delhi, just a 10-minute walk through it, right? Through maybe a sparsely populated part of the slum, there's at least 30 to 40 births going on right there. And so it does make sense that they got that number wrong. But here's our top 7. I'm just going to run it down before we start the ranking. And I don't know. This is one of the things about the ranking episodes where it's just I kind of got to work it out in the middle of it. I really didn't come in with too big of a plan. So number 1, we got Christianity with about 2.2 billion. I think the actual number is 2.6, and then we have Islam with 1.8. I think the actual number's 2 and even 2 billion, and then we got Hinduism with 1.1, Buddhism with about 500. That seems about right, and then Shinto, which if you don't know, it's like the I don't know exactly what it is. You can kind of it's the Japanese religion, right? And we have no idea what those guys are doing there. It's kind of like a Christianity now too, I think a little bit where it's like, yeah, maybe some of the older people really practice it, but everyone else is just going to church so that their grandma gives them $500 when she dies or whatever, right? Like I think that's kind of what Shintoism is right now in Japan. But I think it's like a polytheistic religion a little bit, maybe. Yeah, it seems like it's kind of like a Hinduism a little bit. And then we have Sikhism with 25 million, which that's a disgustingly low number if you know anything about Sikhism. It might be number one. Sikhism might be number one. And then we have Judaism with 14 million. I think we could just call it a day when it comes to Judaism and put that one last. And it has nothing to do with Israel and everything to do with Jesus, right? This guy came along and he completely reformed the religion, completely made a new religion, changed it around in every way, made it better in every way, really. Like what does Judaism have that Christianity doesn't? I don't control over the world, but other than that, other than space lasers, Christianity has everything, and none of the downsides of it, right? So let's get off with this power ranking. We we might have to do a thing where we go one on the top and then one on the bottom. Let me get my phone out real quick, just so I can have an idea, a visual idea of what I'm doing here. I'm a visual learner, guys. Which I'm sorry. TikTok was open on my phone, dude. That's my religion. TikTok is my religion. But let me pull up the notes app right here. Okay, all right. So let's get into it. Number one. I think number one might be a tougher battle than people are going to give it credit for. I think number one is between Sikhism and Christianity. And a lot of sects of Christianity and Sikhism, they do have a fair bit in common, right? Where it's like go out into the world and do good. And like that's how you spread the religion or the message of the religion, right? You don't go out there and chop off some heads, which, in defense of in defense of Sikhism, this is a point Sikhism here. The Christians did do that. They did spend, after the Muslims spent 700 years doing it to the Christians went out and did it for probably about 500 years, just started cutting heads off and being like, you should be Christian, you motherfucker. So that's a point Sikhism in that department. Another point for Sikhism, I've never heard of an evangelical Sikh. I've never heard of like a Sikh person who goes around in like a collared white shirt and a black tie, riding his bike around town, being like, ooh, ooh, knocking on people's doors, being like, you should convert over to our faith. Like, no, they kind of keep to themselves, and they're pretty sick, right? And I kind of understand why they keep to themselves because they're like, we don't want like some fat, pudgy white dude join. They're not like it's not a numbers game. I think in Sikhism, it's more of it's a quality over quantity game. I feel like like if you're gonna be Sikh, you gotta be devout to it. You gotta be willing to I don't know. Are they peaceful? Are they not peaceful? Because they carry around like knives and stuff with them all the time. It might be one of those things. It might be like the the Roosevelt doctrine. If you don't know, Teddy Roosevelt's whole thing was walk quietly and carry a big stick, which is the most Teddy Roosevelt. It's the most Teddy Roosevelt thing I've ever heard. It's insane how much that is like a Teddy Roosevelt thing. Walk quietly and carry a big stick. And so I think that might be the Sikhism thing, like, but that might be a point away from Sikhism because in theory it's a cool idea, but then in practice it's kind of like some dumb nerd anime shit where it's like, yes, I'm quiet and I sit in the back of the class and I don't talk to a lot of people, and I'm nice to people who do talk to me, but if you cross me, if you mess with me, if you make fun of anime, if you make fun of Naruto or One Piece, I will destroy you. Look, I'm not accusing the Sikhs of doing that, but once again, this is just pure vibes. I'm going going off pure vibes. We're not getting too into theology or doctrine or whatever. Maybe a surface level exploration into it, right? Like what I was saying with the evangelical Sikhs. There's no Sikhs riding around on their magic carpets or whatever with their turbans and their golden knives, going from door to door in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, being like, "Have you heard the good word? Have you heard the best? Have you heard the truth?" Right? Like they're not doing that. And I think maybe just for that reason alone, and every story you hear about like a Sikh doing some shit, it's always like the sickest thing. Let me look up stories of like incredible Sikhs or something, right? Because the one I'm thinking of is this dude was like he was a Sikh and his boy was a Muslim. And instead of like trying to convert him or whatever, he built the dude a mosque. Like the dude was like the only Muslim within the thing, within like the area that they lived in. And so this Sikh dude built him a mosque, which is that might be a point away from Sikh because it's like, dude, if you got the message right, and this is the thing I never understood about some of these religions, right? Like evangelism, it just kind of makes sense in a religion, or maybe in some religions, maybe in other ones it doesn't make as much. But in Christianity, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's like in Hinduism, you got as many go arounds as it takes to get, or maybe Buddhism is the better example of that. Like you got as many, you could go around the sun 1,000, or you could like take 10,000 trips to Earth and like different reincarnations or whatever until you get it right. And so you don't really need to evangelize that one too much because it's like ultimately everyone's gonna get where they need to be. But then you have like Christianity where it's like this is your one chance. It's like do or die. And so I can kind of understand why like that one's a little more evangelical. I don't know too much about like the Sikh stuff, but I think it is. I don't know if they believe in reincarnation or whatever, and that might be a point Sikh. But like I said, we're not getting too into theology, and it's been a tough battle. It's been a contentious battle between the Christians and the Sikhs. But I just have to say, it's the way Christianity's going with like the mega churches and the fucking all that bullshit, and they're like, oh, and some of them are kind of going back to their conservative ways now, but they just a lot of these Christian churches in America, they're just corporations, right? They're just trying to get as many people in there as possible so that they can get as much money as possible, and so for that reason, Sikh is going number one. Hey, Sikh, bit of a Cinderella story there. Bit of a Cinderella. They're number 6 out of 7 on the list with only 25 million total, compared to Christianity's 2.2 billion. Which, when you're talking about numbers that big, people can kind of get it confused a little bit. A billion is 1,000 million, and so I can't exactly do the conversion in my head right now. Let's see, that would be 40. So there's like 80 times, around 80 times, or like 50 times more Christians than there is Sikhs, basically. And they still made it number one overall. They still got to the top. And I think they belong there. I do think they belong there. I do think, I just never heard any bad stories about it. And that could be because it is such a small, portion of like the religious population in the world. It could be that, but I think it might be a little more of a they're just kind of more chill about it. They're just a little more chill about it. And that's what Buddhism has that a lot of these other religions don't. Which is why, we were debating Christianity versus Sikhism going number one overall, but Buddhism might be up there a little because they're just way more chill about it. They're just way more like, yeah, dude, like you might not get it in this life, but you're gonna get it in the next one. But that is kind of a point away. That is, there's upsides and downsides to everything, and I feel like that's a bigger downside there. And like nothing matters. Nothing matters. The world is a continuous circle, and so is time and life. And so, I feel like that kind of ends the debate, right? Like if you're gonna be a super religious person like that, like if you're gonna be like, yes, I am religious, you gotta be heavy on it, right? You gotta be, I think, and maybe this is just like my Eurocentric worldview or whatever, but you got to be able to use your religion to like oppress people, right? It shouldn't be that shouldn't be the nature of the religion, but it should be able to do that, right? Like just in case, dude, just if some something at some point goes wrong, you should be able to use your religion to oppress people. And there were some big Buddhist empires and kingdoms and shit like that, right? Like those big statues in Afghanistan that. What was it? That would be the Taliban. That the Taliban blew up, and then you have like Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and then you got a few of the Indonesian islands are Buddhist, but they just didn't have the reach that Christianity has. And once again, we are factoring legacy into this. This is like the hub categories ranking, where it's like we're gonna factor legacy into it. But I feel like Christianity's legacy might be enough to carry it number one overall. But just being in America now, it's hard to give that one the number one. You know what I mean? Like the people of America are very, very religious, even if they're not, practicing an official religion like Christianity or Islam or Judaism or Hinduism or whatever. They're still a very religious people, right? Like, as you can see right now with these riots in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? It's just completely irrational. It makes no sense to be doing what they're doing, but they're doing it anyway. And so I feel like that spirit kind of lends itself to certain religions in some way, right? Especially now, post Enlightenment, where everything's supposed to be like this logical, scientific calculation of the world. And, if you can't get the retarded Americans who just will cling on to literally anything and hold on to it for dear life in spite of any evidence to the contrary, if you can't get those guys to be Christian, then you can't really get a whole ton of other people to be Christian. You know what I mean when I'm saying that? And I know I say you know what I mean a lot. I'm trying to become a you get me guy. I'm trying to convert, dude. This is an episode about religion. I've been a you know what I mean, you know what I'm saying. I've never really been a do you understand me because that's a little too formal, a little too official, a little too militaristic. I feel like you get me is like the perfect, middle ground between you know what I mean and do you understand me. You get me? It's quick, it's to the point. It's slightly aggressive, but depending on the tone, it can become more of a laid back thing where it's like you get me versus you get me. And then you know what I mean is like that's always kind of like a shoulder shrug type of saying, right? It's like if you're saying you know what I mean, you kind of are like putting your hands up in almost like a Trump type of way, but like palms towards the sky, and you're putting your shoulders up, you're shrugging, being like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's always the context for you know what I mean. Whereas you get me is a little more fluid like that. Like you can hit like a head tilt, you get me, and then you can hit like a leaning forward, you get me. Like a head tilt, you get me would be like, you get me, and then like a head forward type of you get me would be like, you get me. So I feel like for that reason, you get me is just it's more universal, it's quicker, it's to the point, right? And that's all this podcast is about. Corporate efficiency. If you are the CEO or the manager or a team leader in some giant corporation, people are saying, "Do you understand where I'm coming from?" or some shit like that. Phase that out, dude. And for one, do you understand where I'm coming from? That kind of opens the door for an explanation or like a questioning from the other person that you're saying, do you understand me? You know what I mean? Whereas you get me, if you tell someone you get me, they're just gonna be like, yeah, even if they don't understand it, it's what it's gonna be. And people are gonna be like, well, I want people to ask questions so that they can really understand what they're doing. No, you don't, because they're not gonna understand what they're doing. Right? Like everyone, I think a lot of people, especially now, don't understand the idea of fake it till you make it. And that's a very, very important thing. It just everything applies to that. Parenting, working a job, college, social life. You just kind of got to fake it till you make it. And so I feel like you get me lends itself a little bit more to that, right? Because I might not even know what I'm saying when I say you get me. Like that might be the undertones of it being like, you get me? Right? Where it's like, I don't really know what I'm saying. You don't really know what I'm saying, but fuck it, dude. Fuck it, man. We work at like a healthcare. We work at an insurance adjuster, dude. It doesn't matter what we do at all. Right? Like the insurance policy or the insurance company is still gonna deny it. It doesn't matter how many CEOs get shot in the head. They're still gonna keep fucking denying it. So it doesn't matter. You get me. So I'm trying to convert over to being a you get me guy as opposed to, you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. It does have a little bit like that big city swagger. You know what I mean? Right? Like a dude in New York or whatever, walking down the street being like, "Hey, can I get a cigarette?" Yeah, I got some cigarettes, you know what I mean? I feel like that it just has a little bit of that city, that big city oomph to it, whereas you get me is a little more country, which it which does fit me better. So I think I'm gonna try to slowly convert over to you get me. I might have to go to a conversion camp. I might have to go to a Clockwork Orange style interrogation thing, right? Where in A Clockwork Orange, they were like prying his eyes open and making him watch those movies. I might do that and just like every night I go to sleep though, is just play like a loop of someone saying you get me over and over and over on my headphones so that it like subliminally gets into my mind. So I'm not saying you know what I mean anymore. I'm saying you get me. And Christianity's number two, you get me? It's just where it belongs. I feel like legacy, Jesus is just the sickest guy of all time. He really is. He he was a nice guy when he needed to be. and a mean guy when and he was really, everyone always talks about the table flipping one. That's just guys having fun. That Jesus might not even have been that mad. He was just like, I'm just really something about today. He might have been like a Buffalo's Bills fan, whereas like today I'm just feeling like destroying some tables. That might have been what Jesus was doing at the temple. He was just such a like a chill, cool guy, and he was like God, but he had all the temptations of a man. And so I feel like Jesus alone makes Christianity that number 2 pick. I'm not even going off vibes. And also, I do think I have to make this distinction. We're not including Mormonism in Christianity because it's not. Right? It's just it's not Christianity. It's they don't believe in the same things at all, right? The only thing that Christianity and Mormonism have in common is that people think that it's like a white thing, right? That's the only thing they have in common. They do have Jesus in common, I guess, but I feel like the Mormon Jesus. I know a lot about like Joseph Smith, but I don't know a lot about like what the Mormons think about Jesus. They probably believe the Mormonistic view of Jesus is probably pretty close to the way like Hitler viewed Jesus, if I had to guess. Just like a dude that lives in the middle of the desert but is like stark white. Yeah, so I do think Christianity, I think Jesus really, really strengthens Christianity's case, which that does sound stupid, right? Because it's like that's the whole basis of Christianity, but a lot of Christian movements have kind of moved away from Jesus a little bit in some ways. I don't want to be shitting on anyone too much, but I mean, they objectively have. Right, like well, I said, we don't want to talk about theology too much, but they just have moved away from like Orthodox Christian tenets, we'll say, and kind of moved away from Jesus. And so for that reason, we're putting Christianity at number 3. And then at number 2. And then we're going for the number 3 spot right here. Sorry, I'm typing on my phone like a 90-year-old woman right now. Just one finger at a time. Just like, where's the question mark at? Grandma, you don't need to end it in a question mark. People will know it's a text. Well, it's grammar. Grammar's important. That is how I text though. I'm a big commas guy. I've used a semicolon. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. And I'm sure it wasn't in the right grammatical context to use a semicolon, you know? I wasn't using it correctly as it should be used, but I still used it. I've probably used it more than once in a text. And that's just how I type, right? Like my brother did. I was talking to my brother a little bit over text, and he's one of those dudes that like replaces letters with numbers sometimes. And I don't know, he probably has like some weird like Motorola, like some weird brand phone where it's like maybe the numbers are above like where the keyboard is, but mine's not. I have to press a separate button to get over to the numbers. But just people that type like that piss me off a little bit. I type like a 90-year-old woman that's writing like a Little House on the Prairie fiction novel. You know, I'm using proper grammar. I'm like, does the syntax make sense in that in this situation? That is how I type a little bit. But the other thing about that is I'm very stupid, right? Like I don't know the rules of grammar in any way, shape, or form. And so it's this very funny combination of like formality combined with just general lack of knowledge and understanding of how the subject works, right? Like how the subject of grammar and writing works combined with wanting to be able to use the rules. And that's how I would describe my typing method. And then we're at number 3, and then there were 4 left. So I think number 3 is probably, if I had to guess, it's going to be between Islam and Buddhism. In Islam, the case for Islam being at number 3, the case for it being above Buddhism, I'd say is it's so much more hype, right? Like you never hear about like a Buddhist extremist, you know, running into a fucking department store with a suicide vest on. You don't hear about that. And in order for someone to do that, they gotta feel like they gotta feel some kind of something. They gotta feel high, even if it's just like your boys hyping you up. You still gotta feel that way. Like the only instances of Buddhists doing anything similar to that is like the ones that like lit themselves on fire in protest, which it's the dumbest way to protest. It's so fucking stupid to protest. Like I feel like especially in America too, when you were looking at like the BLM protest riot things, and then this now. I feel like getting arrested in those situations is like a sign that you're a real protester. But it doesn't make any the whole point of you protesting should be to avoid being arrested, or if you're gonna be arrested, it should be in like a completely like fascist way where you're just like holding a sign on a sidewalk and then you get like bonked in the back of the head and dragged off. But these people aren't getting arrested for that, right? They're they're getting arrested for throwing a brick through the front glass of a Nordstrom store. Like that's why they're getting arrested. And I feel like self-immolation, which is what it's called when you light yourself on fire, I think especially in the context of a protest is it's the same thing where it's like why would that be the thing you that's like some point of like, not privilege. I'm trying to think of the word like some point of fuck like a legacy or whatever, right? Within the context of protesting, like why would that be like the whole point of you protesting should be preserving yourself in such a way that you're able to continue to protest this thing, because if you light yourself on fire, I don't know if you guys know a lot about human biology or injuries or the way the human body interacts with fire, especially when it's in covering your entire body, but you die. That's what happens when you light yourself on fire. You die. And so therefore you're not able to continue your protest, right? It goes back to the last episode I just did with the Doomsday Cults and Jim Jones and all that. When the 900 people, the reason they killed themselves, it was a form of protest. They called it like revolutionary suicide, and it's like, well, no, right? You can't just be like, all right, it's a revolution, and now everyone that's in the revolution is going to kill themselves. Well, then the revolution's never going to happen. Right? The thing that you want to happen, the change you want to see in the world cannot happen if everyone within the movement kills themselves. And this is just a very, very basic idea. This is a very it's not even logic. You don't even have to think logically about that for it to be true in any way, shape, or form. It's just like you look at the thing that the Buddhist monks were protesting. They were protesting the Vietnam War. That didn't stop anything. You know what stopped the Vietnam War? The American people being like, dude, we're done with it. That's that's what stopped the Vietnam War. Not a bunch of dudes somewhere lighting themselves on fire. And so, you know, putting that out there in terms of self-harm, the Muslims have the upper hand on the Buddhists. Another thing that I think Islam has on Buddhism is they have like one consolidated text. They have like one thing that you can go to, right? Like Christians have the Bible. I don't know what Sikhs have. I'm sure the Sikhs have like a few different, schools of philosophy or schools of thought or, religious leaders or whatever. But just based off vibes, Sikhism goes number one, and then Christianity, the Bible is another important piece in Christianity going number two, right? Like Buddhism has like 1,000 different fucking like papyrus scrolls that you can look at and try to interpret and understand, whereas Islam is just like it's the Quran and the Bible, which they do use, and that once again, that's a point away from Islam because you're stealing another religion's things. Right? You're not. The Islamist like the Muhammad. He didn't like revise the Bible really in any way, shape, or form. He was just like, no, Jesus isn't God. That's the only change he made to the Bible. He was just everything else he chose to keep the same way. And so I feel like it's a point towards Islam in the sense that they do have one consolidated sacred text that you can go to for all your answers, or I guess two in this instance, the Bible and the Quran. Those are the two that you can go to get your information from, whereas Buddhism is like you have to hike a fucking 10,000-foot tall mountain so that you can talk to some like 90-year-old Asian dude who wears who wears fucking like a prison jumpsuit, basically a bright orange robe. And so I feel like that's a point towards Islam, but then the point away from it is you just stole the Bible, which you do have to give them credit where credit is due. You're not beating the Bible. It's they call it the greatest story ever told, and it's not just that. It has all the best rules, and it has some very cool things in it that rule pretty hard. It's not just the stories, and but I just can't put Islam past number three. It's and I know the Buddhists, they're going to be upset, but also they're not going to do anything about it. They're just going to be like, well, life goes on. Life continues in its flat circle. It continues. The universe looks down on you. But Buddhism will be number four, I have to say. And once again, this is like the hub categories. These are the cream of the crop, dude. They're the cream of the cock, which is a new saying that I'm trying to get going. I don't know if anyone's buying into it, but I think cream of the cock it's just better in every way, shape, or form. But Buddhism does have to go number 4. It's it's tough, right? It's a tough one, but I do think it goes there. And of these 4 that we're looking at right now, the one that I would be most likely to join is is probably Buddhism. It's it's just very I do like the idea of reincarnation. I think that's a pretty sick one, right? It's like even if you don't get it right on the first go around, you can go around again, you know, and see what the fuck is going on. And I think there's some forms of Buddhism. This might be completely wrong. This might be completely incorrect, but it's like you get to experience the life of everything that has ever lived and everything that like theoretically could ever live or something like that. Like it's like you're part of one big consciousness and like reincarnation is just you experiencing a different life maybe or something like that. That's probably completely wrong. I'm probably thinking of like some schizophrenic chick I saw on Instagram Reels or whatever. Just a chick with like a bunch of weird tattoos all over her body and like kind of dyed hair, just like speaking into the camera, and like you can tell she used to be hot. That might have been some information I learned from a woman exactly like that. But Buddhism at number 4. And Hinduism's the only big one still standing, and I feel like I don't know enough about Shintoism to put it above Hinduism. And so I feel like for that reason Hinduism is going to be number 5 on the list. And I do think that's a pretty solid spot for it, especially considering like a lot of these other religions that you look at, including Buddhism, which I don't think a lot of people realize, they're all, and maybe Sikhism is an exception to this rule, but like I said, Sikhism just based off vibes, just, everything you hear about it is like, yeah, that rule is pretty fucking, you carry around a knife all the time, the turban looks pretty fucking sick, you got a beard, it just rules. And, but Hinduism is kind of like this ethno religion, right? Or it's really only people in like India and Nepal practice it. Maybe some parts of, I know there's parts of Indonesia that practice it, and then maybe some parts of like Myanmar practice it. But like Buddhism has like a fairly wide reach to it, considering how small it is. Like we said, it's only 500 million people, and to be fair, it is mostly in Asia, right? But it used to be kind of all over Asia, but now it's kind of only in Southeast Asia. But then you have like the Tibetan Buddhists, and then you have the Mongolian Buddhists, which those two things are separated by a pretty large landmass, and then you have like Japanese forms of Buddhism. And so I feel like that's another reason to put Buddhism is over Hinduism. It's just you get so many things to pick from. It's Hinduism is kind of like dark chocolate. A lot of people love dark chocolate. I'm personally not the biggest fan. Buddhism has a bit of a wider range there. Even if it's not, it doesn't have as many followers, even if it's not as popular, it's like I'd rather have the options there to pick from. And so I feel like for that reason, Buddhism goes over Hinduism. And then we have 6 and 7 left. So 6 and 7 is Shintoism, which is the Japanese religion, remember, and then we have Judaism, or Judaism. And I feel like we have a pretty obvious pick here with Shintoism going number 6, and then fuck, Judaism going number 7. And especially with all the Israel stuff, the idea of Judaism is like a contentious thing. And like I was saying about Hinduism, it's a pretty ethno religion, right? Like the fucking the Jews will be like, well then what about the Ethiopian Jews? And it's like there's 4 of them, right? It's like when someone's like, yeah, the place you live in is racist, and then you're like, well, what about Black Bob? What about, I'm not going to say the word, but what about N-word Bob? He lives here. Uh, and so I feel like that puts Judaism last. And like I said, Christianity just rules. Fuck. I spelled Judaism like Jaguar. Judaism. Oh my fucking god. I don't know how to spell it, but it's number 7. Doesn't matter how I'm going to spell it. It's number 7. And like I said, there's only 14 million followers of it. Sikhism has almost double that, and it's the next one on the list. And then Shintoism, like I said, I don't know enough about it. I think it might be, and this might be a tough one, right? I think it might be like kind of a laid back Hinduism where they do have all like these gods and rituals and all like this shit that they do, but it's kind of a little bit more laid back, right? Like the Hindus are still doing shit like the old way. They're still like burning dudes and like on the river Ganges and like throwing their bodies into the river that they all drink and bathe from. But like I said, I just don't know enough about the Shinto religion to be able to put it above Hinduism. And so that rounds out the ranking. We got number 1, Sikh, number 2, Christianity, number 3, Islam, number 4, Buddhism, number 5, Hinduism, number 6, Shintoism, and then number 7, Judaism. And if you're part of any one of these, don't take offense to it. This is just one guy's ranking, you know? If you really believe in the God of your religion, then it doesn't matter at all what I think, because that guy knows everything. And so, yeah, that's all I've got for the day. Just made a cherry cobbler, a tart cherry cobbler. I'm probably gonna go have a bite of that and then hop in the shower real quick, a nice cool shower because I'm fucking destroyed by sunburns. But I hope you guys have a good day, good week, good year, good life. I hope everything goes well for you. I hope your job isn't treating you too poorly. Yeah, and 10 to the 2 new followers. If you're listening to this, shout out to you guys. Thank you very much. It's very nice of you to do that. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for current events. Peace.